Sir Jackie, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Sadly, you have first-hand experience of this awful disease, your wife Helen having been diagnosed 8 years ago. That must have been really shocking and unexpected when you found out.
Completely unexpected. I think this happens to most families where dementia is becoming a real epidemic, bigger than most people ever realised before, and there is no cure. So that's why we started off this race against dementia, because it needs speed. Motor racing was my business, and I think we're going the right way about it.
You've said in the past that you wanted to put the urgency of Formula One problem solving into research for dementia. Is that? Do you feel that you're doing that?
Oh yes, no question about it, because we're using both Red Bull and McLaren, because in Formula One, there's no other activity in the world that has faster problem-solving skills. You know, from one Grand Prix to another, there might only be a week or maximum 2 weeks apart. There might be 6 major changes in that time in all of those cars. So we're using Formula One. We're taking our young PhDs there to see how that business works at such a rate, where unfortunately the reality is that the brain, even though it's by far, I think, the most expensive piece of kit that we have in the world, is really not getting a lot done. And we're developing young people, particularly young PhDs, young professors, to be looking at it in a different way, not as their predecessors and even the ones today are of more mature years. They've just been doing it in the same direction, it seems to me, and it hasn't been successful. So motor racing's a good example of finding problem solving in a fast fashion.
Obviously you live with your wife Helen and see how this disease impacts. I mean, how is she now?
Well, it's a very sad illness. There is no cure, and there has been no cure for over 40 or 50 years. To see somebody begin with just forgetting things, beyond that, their stability leaves. Then Helen now can't walk normally. She sometimes can walk with her chair around her, but it's a real problem. So I'm very lucky that my sport has allowed me to be able to afford what we need for Helen, and we've got 7 neuro nurses looking after her 24 hours a day, 2 at a time. But it takes that, or Helen would have to be in a home of some kind, and that's what happens to most families. So this is an illness that we've got to challenge. We're doing a lot of it in Scotland, by the way. We've got a brilliant young lady up in Edinburgh who's amazing. And we've had James Dyson, who you know, famous for vacuum cleaners and now a lot of other things. He's been a great financial supporter to this young lady, and she's a star. Mm-hmm. And we really believe we're going to break through and get something done.
Yeah, and are you hopeful of a cure within the next, decade, 20 years? What do you think is a realistic expectation or ambition?
I think we've got to do it better than we've done it before, certainly before 20 years, in my opinion. That's why we're using youth. They're hungry, they're ambitious, they want to get it done. And sadly, there hasn't been anything like the same amount of money spent on research as there been in cancer or heart disease. And look what they did with AIDS. Very, very quickly, a lot of money came their way, and bingo. Mm-hmm. They kind of cured that problem. So it's not impossible. We've got a challenge ahead of us, but we've got wonderful people with us. Okay. And that's terribly important, both for raising money, but also, more importantly, in the medical world.
Okay, Sir Jackie Stewart, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Scotland Tonight.
Thank you.